Picture this: Alexandria, 48 BCE, a city of marvels, a beacon of knowledge for the entire ancient world. At its heart, the legendary Great Library, home to hundreds of thousands of scrolls containing the collective wisdom of humanity. But on one fateful night, caught in the crossfire of Julius Caesar's civil war, flames erupted in the harbor. Flames that, according to some, would consume this irreplaceable treasure. But is that what really happened? Did Caesar, the brilliant general and statesman, accidentally or intentionally destroy the greatest repository of knowledge ever assembled? Or is the truth far more complicated? Welcome, history lovers, to a journey back in time. Today, we're not just telling a story. We're investigating a cold case, one of the greatest cultural mysteries of all time. Who is responsible for the destruction of the Library of Alexandria? The answer isn't as simple as pointing a finger at Caesar. For centuries, he's been the prime suspect. But the evidence is murky, the witnesses are contradictory, and the timeline is full of holes. So let us put on our detective hats and sift through the ashes of history to uncover the truth. To understand the tragedy, we must first understand the treasure. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building with books. It was a revolutionary idea. Founded by Ptolemy I Soter, a successor to Alexander the Great, it was part of a larger research institution called the Mouseion. It was the ancient world's Silicon Valley, a hub of innovation where the brightest minds in mathematics, astronomy, literature, and medicine gathered. Archimedes, Euclid, Eratosthenes, these giants walked its halls. They measured the circumference of the earth, mapped the stars, and wrote masterpieces of literature. The library's goal was audacious: to collect all the world's knowledge. Ships docking in Alexandria were forced to hand over their books to be copied. It was a global intellectual project on an unprecedented scale. Losing it would be like losing the internet today. Now let's set the scene for the crime. It's 48 BCE. Julius Caesar, fresh from his victory over his rival Pompey, arrives in Alexandria. But this is no victory lap. He finds himself embroiled in a fierce local power struggle between the young pharaoh Ptolemy III and his brilliant, ambitious sister, Cleopatra. Caesar, with only a small force, sides with Cleopatra. Soon he's besieged in the royal palace by the Egyptian army. The harbor becomes a war zone. Caesar, in a desperate tactical move, orders his men to set fire to the Egyptian fleet docked in the harbor, to prevent them from being used against him. This is the critical moment. The fire. According to several ancient sources, including the philosopher Seneca writing a century later, the flames from the burning ships spread to the docks and nearby buildings, ultimately engulfing a warehouse filled with scrolls. Some accounts claim this was the library itself. This is the classic narrative. Caesar's military necessity led to an accidental, catastrophic cultural loss. The story is dramatic, tragic, and has a famous name attached to it. It's the version that has dominated popular history for 2,000 years. It paints Caesar as a man of action, perhaps reckless, whose ambition inadvertently torched the light of knowledge. But hold on. Let's examine the evidence more closely. Is this account reliable? The first problem is the sources. The most dramatic accounts of Caesar's fire destroying the entire library were written decades or even centuries after the event. Contemporary accounts, including from Caesar himself in his The Civil Wars, mention the fire in the harbor, but are conspicuously silent about the destruction of the Great Library. You'd think that if he had accidentally burned down the world's most famous intellectual center, it would have been a major point of discussion, either for him to defend or for his enemies to condemn. But there's a deafening silence. Furthermore, the geographer Strabo, who visited Alexandria just a couple of decades after Caesar's visit, mentions the Mouseion and its community of scholars as if they were still active. He even talks about its dining hall and its scholarly activities. He doesn't mention a catastrophic fire or a ruined library. How could a place of such importance be utterly destroyed? Yet a visitor shortly after makes no note of it. This suggests that while something did burn, it might not have been the Great Library itself. A more plausible theory is that a warehouse on the docks, used for storing scrolls destined for export or awaiting processing into the main library, was what burned. A tragic loss, yes, tens of thousands of scrolls according to some, but not the complete annihilation of the institution. So if Caesar didn't deliver the fatal blow, who did? The truth is, the Library of Alexandria likely didn't die in a single fiery night. Its demise was more like a slow, painful decline, a death by 1,000 cuts over several centuries. The institution was incredibly expensive to maintain, and its fate was tied to the political and economic fortunes of its patrons, the Ptolemaic dynasty, and later, the Roman emperors. Let's look at the other suspects. After the Ptolemies fell and Egypt became a Roman province, the library's funding and prestige began to wane. Political instability was a constant threat. In the 3rd century CE, about 300 years after Caesar, the Emperor Aurelian attacked Alexandria to quell a rebellion. His forces destroyed the Bruttium district, the royal quarter where the main library was located. Many historians believe this was the moment the Great Library was truly, finally destroyed, or at least mortally wounded. This was not an accident. It was the collateral damage of brutal urban warfare. But the story doesn't end there. There was a daughter library at a temple called the Serapeum, which housed a significant collection of its own. This brings us to our final suspect, religious fanaticism. In 391 CE, the Roman Empire was now Christian. Theophilus, the Patriarch of Alexandria, was a zealous man on a mission to stamp out paganism. On his orders, a Christian mob, fired up by religious fervor, attacked and destroyed the Serapeum temple. Ancient sources describe the scene as a rampage, with pagan idols smashed and the temple razed. While the sources don't explicitly say the scrolls were systematically burned, it's almost certain that the collection within the Serapeum was either destroyed in the chaos or dispersed and lost forever. This act represented not an accidental fire, but a deliberate ideological assault on the symbols of the old world and its pagan knowledge. So, who burned the Library of Alexandria? The answer is everyone and no one. Julius Caesar may have started a fire that dealt the first significant blow, destroying a warehouse of scrolls. Economic neglect and the chaos of the Roman civil wars in the 3rd century likely destroyed the main building. And finally, religious intolerance in the 4th century wiped out its last remnant. The destruction wasn't a single event, but a long, drawn-out process of war, neglect, and fanaticism. The story of the Library of Alexandria isn't just about a fire. It's a powerful and timeless warning. It shows us how fragile knowledge is, how easily it can be lost to war, how it can wither from neglect, and how it can be threatened by ideology. The burning of the library, whether by Caesar's fire or by a mob centuries later, has become a symbol for the loss of cultural heritage and the dangers of ignorance. It reminds us that protecting our libraries, our archives, and our access to information is a battle that never truly ends. The flame that consumed those ancient scrolls serves as an eternal reminder of what we stand to lose when we let the fires of conflict and intolerance burn too bright. Thank you so much for joining me on this investigation into one of history's greatest mysteries. What do you think happened? Was Caesar the main culprit, or was it a slow decline? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving deep into the past, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another journey into history. See you next time.